Tonight on Greater Boston, a bombshell 2015 report opened the eyes of many to the city's expansive wealth gap, showing a median net worth of just $8 for black families in Boston versus $250,000 for white families. Now, local leaders are taking a much deeper second dive into the numbers, gathering data from across the state, hoping to inspire real solutions. Then later, the literal turf war playing out in several local cities and towns, and what's at stake. And finally, a look back at my recent interview with March for Our Lives co-founder David Hogg and Stop Handgun Violence co-founder John Rosenthal on the many roadblocks they've been facing in their efforts to keep massacres like those in Uvalde and Buffalo from happening at all. It was the number heard round the region back in 2015 and frequently repeated on this show and in many other spaces since. The median net wealth of black Americans living in Boston, just $8, compared with nearly $250,000 for white households. That's what was published in the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston report, making clear the inequality that has long persisted in a region teeming with opportunity for some. Now, local leaders are taking a much deeper look at this divide, the root causes and potential solutions, not just in Boston, but across the state and among other groups. I'm joined by two of the people behind that expanded effort, Nicole Obi, the Chief Executive of Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, BECMA, and Prabal Chakrabarti, Executive Vice President of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Welcome to both of you. Good to see you both.
Great to be here.
You know, Nicole, you're quoted in the Globe saying that the study in 2015 kicked off a racial awakening in Boston. But it seems to me, while there was a ton of talk about this, there was much less action than talk. Do you think that's a fair characterization?
I think that the results are mixed. I think that the awakening was real. I think some folks used that as the impetus to get about making change, while others weren't necessarily sure what to do. And there were some that didn't mean anything to them at all.
Prabal, I didn't realize how small the sample size was today. And I don't think you were involved in the actual research, but you were in the presentation. Do you worry at all that the divide may not be as egregious as portrayed because the sample size was so small? Or are you confident in those 2015 numbers?
The original Color of Wealth study found what many national studies have found, a really stark divide between blacks and whites in terms of wealth. If you focus sort of on the absolute number, it's on the order of a couple 100,000. And so we're very confident that that steep divide is there and that it very likely remains. With a new study, we hope to say more, not just about the steepness of the divide, but about some of the sources and in particular point a direction. I think Nicole is absolutely right. This study was a flare that went up, that launched many efforts, many sort of ships, if you will. Our hope is that this new study provides more of a compass, more of a direction, that it expands to the region, Massachusetts as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so we look forward to taking on this effort.
Prabal, I want to stay with you for a second. I had a couple of leaders of Latino groups here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about your study. And I was amazed then, as I expressed them, and I was at the time. If we can put up these numbers, while practically everybody watching these shows has internalized and memorized the 250,000 versus 8 number, almost no one spoke about zero wealth dollars for a Dominican family, a mere $3,000 for a Puerto Rican family. Do you have any insight into why those numbers, by the way, in the fastest growing population, the Latino population in Boston, why they were second thoughts, if thoughts at all?
Well, I'd say that the real power of that study and of this new look that we're taking at it is really being able to look at ethnic and sub-ethnic groups in much more detail. It's interesting you mentioned those figures. There are also a lot of information in that study that pointed to the use of sort of availability of savings products, retirement accounts, home ownership, the role of debt, student loans and car loans. Looking at these numbers with a more comprehensive and an expanded effort to look across the region, we do hope to say more about key demographic groups, and again, to say more about the sources. Wealth is incredibly important in the Latino population, Black population, Asian population, certain sub ethnic groups within Asians. It's incredibly important to allow people to participate in the labor market. The ability to borrow for a student loan to get a higher paying job.
Let me be clear, I wasn't faulting the Federal Reserve. You put out the numbers. I was faulting people like me who chose not to focus on those while we were focused pretty intensely. You know, one of the other Globe interviews you did, Nicole, I hope you don't think I'm stalking your interviews, but your first interview with the Globe after you got the job at BECMA, you talked about how important ownership was. And I looked back at those home ownership numbers in 2015. White families, almost 80% home ownership. Blacks, less than less than a third. Dominicans, again, a fifth or less. So we do know, even without the new research, that the absence of home ownership in families of color is a central pillar of this inequity. Is that not so, Nicole?
Yes, absolutely, that is the case. And that has its roots in systemic racism and redlining and these issues that have been going on for generations. And that's the result of it. The system has worked as it was designed to work. And that's what it looks like when it works well.
You know, you mentioned, Prabal, a minute ago, student loans. Ayanna Pressley, the congresswoman, was on our radio show today. She had something to say about that very topic and about inequity. Here's the congresswoman.
20 years after Black borrowers took out loans, they still owe 95% of their loan. White borrowers owe 6%. Now, that's not because those Black borrowers were not gainfully employed and weren't working hard and trying to, it's about the layered generational sort of policy violence of everything from a wage gap, the racial wealth gap, and all of those things add up. So this is a racial justice issue.
Prabal, do you agree with the Congresswoman's analysis?
I think Congresswoman Pressley is asking the right questions. I think that student loans, as I mentioned earlier, key toward being able to get the education and training to get a higher paying job, participate in the labor market. I think it's a complicated question. I think one of the things that the survey and more extensive work will shed more light on the extent and nature of the issue, and also point a direction on how to address not just the issue of student loans, but sort of the underlying factors, the lack of access to wealth that drives people to take on those loans.
I want one last political question for you, Nicole, and I hope this is a decent analogy. We were all stunned that Sandy Hook provoked no action at all, essentially, on guns on the federal level. If I can analogize, these $250,000 date dollar thing is incredibly stark. And with all due respect to your first thought, it didn't provoke nearly the amount of response and action that I think the numbers merited. Do you worry if that didn't do it, that no matter how comprehensive this next 2.0 study is, that we're going to be stuck in the same morass?
I do worry to some degree, Jim, but I also know that there are changes that are happening and that there are people who are in decision-making roles that are helping to move us further, and that the next study, which we're happy to be a part of and welcome the opportunity to get to some of these root cause issues, will be helpful in many ways, in many realms.
I hope it is. Nicole, Prabal, good to meet you both. Good luck with your work. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
In cities and towns across the state, there are literal turf wars playing out, with some battling for grass fields, others pushing for artificial alternatives. And as Liz Neesloss found, some argue there's a lot at stake in the outcome.
Artificial turf lets the games go on, no matter the weather.
Having been a coach, once it starts raining, you have access to fields more when they're turf.
The city of Malden wants to turn this grass park to turf to create more space for sports. Neighbors say replacing grass with plastic turf will bring environmental and health hazards and rob the neighborhood of natural green space.
They haven't listened to the neighbors, and instead they've elevated the organized sports voices over the neighbors here.
The park sits alongside the Salem Wood School in an area where the majority of residents are non-English speaking. Fifth grade science teacher Kathy Sullivan sees the grass field as a vital resource for local students.
They're losing green space in a very congested urban environment, in a place where these kids get to run for 20 minutes a day, maybe before school, after school, and many of them go home to apartments, and they don't have that. This is their green space that they're taking away from them.
Turf fields are made of plastic grass blades with various types of fill material. Research has found turf grass itself contains forms of PFAS, chemicals that don't break down and accumulate in waterways and the food chain.
If we are concerned about hazards in a particular material, even if it is a very minute amount of chemical that may be present in that material, we're talking about an entire football field that's covered in it.
Unlike grass, plastic traps heat, raising temperatures on the field and in the neighborhood. And despite claims that it can be recycled, research shows old turf mostly ends up in landfills.
We've found many cases where old turf is being dumped, sometimes in the woods, or they're being dumped on leased land and just kind of sitting there waiting.
City officials declined to speak on camera, as did the head of the city's youth soccer program, who calls the turf versus grass debate one of the most contentious in the city. It's not just Malden.
So yelling questions at me, throwing pencils to get my attention really won't work.
In Nantucket, the proposal for turf has been put on hold. And in Martha's Vineyard, the battle over this high school field went on for 7 years.
We've had a Board of Health agent resign because of concerns for her safety, feeling threatened related to this issue, a host of other, just kind of ugly examples.
A growing number of local communities, including Sharon, Wayland, and Concord, have issued moratoriums on new turf fields. Turf or not, Malden's Roosevelt Park needs work. Lead's been found in the soil. Plans to remove it are on hold until the field is redone. Liz Niesloss, GBH News.
Construction on that turf field is scheduled to begin in Malden this fall. Local residents say they plan to continue that fight. And finally tonight, it's been less than 3 months since March for Our Lives co-founder David Hogg and Stop Handgun Violence co-founder John Rosenthal joined me in this studio. And since then, at least 167 people have been killed in mass shootings, defined as 4 or more people shot or killed, including 10 black people targeted and murdered in Buffalo, New York. And of course, 21 people in Uvalde, Texas, 19 of them young kids. So I think it's worth a look back at what and who these activists feel is responsible and their hope for the future. David, it's really good to meet you. And John, thanks so much for being here. People see you and you're this crusader, this charismatic activist who's fighting for legislative and other change. You're also a mass shooting survivor. What have the last 4 years been like for you on a personal level, David?
Chaotic, to say the least. I think in the first 2 years or so after everything that had happened, my fellow activists and I, classmates and others from Parkland joined together with many of the parents of victims as well to go and lobby Washington and especially state capitals around the country to change things. I think, to put it briefly, the past 2 years, or the past 4 years now, have felt like 50 or more. We've seen so much cultural change, especially with our generation, turning out at some of the highest rates in American history to vote in 2018, getting 10 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives and defeating more NRA-backed politicians than ever before, and also the highest youth voter rate in American history in 2020. So it's been very rewarding in some senses to see that kind of change, but also very depressing at the same time to see the chilling effect that the filibusters had on our democracy.
Can you cite any legislative change that you're you feel good about in those 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, the CDC and NIH were basically getting $0 in funding from the federal government to study gun violence, in part because of something called the Dickey Amendment that essentially stopped the CDC from studying the effectiveness of gun laws. And that was one thing that we were able to change through reconciliatory measure within the federal government. Of course, I wish it was more, though. But with that, we've also seen major changes at the state level, with over 50 state gun laws being changed or enacted since Parkland happened.
Even in Florida, by the way.
Yes, even in Florida.
Even in Florida. You know, John, did you not tell me at one point, staying in Congress for a second, it would take members of Congress getting shot for them to act? You did say something like that to me, and members of Congress were shot. Maybe it led to one husband of a shot congressperson being elected to the Senate. But beyond that, in some ways, it seems to have hardened their resolution against change. What next has to happen other than generational change?
You know, I, like a lot of people, thought Sandy Hook might change things. 20 babies. But obviously it didn't. Members of Congress have made a choice. They have chosen special interest blood money campaign contributions over the lives of 100 of us a day. I mean, since I started Stop Handgun Violence in 1994, basically 1 million people have died from gun violence. And there's no background check for gun sales in America. I mean, we are, sort of the model for bad public policy in the world, and there are real consequences. And to think that Congress would choose unrestricted access to guns when 40,000 people are dying a year is just an indication of how broken our system is. And when Parkland happened and David and Emma and the organizers created the March for Our Lives, I realized that is the future, because adults have failed this generation. Our generation has failed the generation that's following, and they're not safe in schools. They're not safe in movie theaters. They're not safe in nightclubs. And shame on us for allowing our members of Congress and not holding them accountable. And until we get to the polls and vote these people out, it's just going to continue.
Well, until that happens, there is a president who, as you've noted as recently as a couple of days ago on your Twitter account, has the ability to do things. Here's what the President of the United States had to say about gun issues, at least part of what he had to say during his State of the Union last week.
I asked Congress to pass proven measures to reduce gun violence. Pass universal background checks. Why should anyone on the terrorist list be able to purchase a weapon? Why? Ban assault weapons with high-capacity magazines that hold up to 100 rounds. Repeal the liability shield that makes gun manufacturers the only industry in America that can't be sued. These laws don't infringe on the Second Amendment. They save lives.
So clearly, I would say, talking the talk. But other than, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, I know he did something by executive action on ghost guns, I believe. You suggest there's a lot more he can do unilaterally without Congress that he's not doing. What are those things, and why isn't he doing them?
Yeah, that's a great question that I continue to talk with the White House about in private meetings. The main things that we talk about creating are something like a National Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We've seen similar offices created for things like climate, labor, and gender equity, but we don't have something like that for gun violence prevention. And this is a conversation that we continue to talk about with the White House on basically a weekly basis at this point. The other thing that President Biden could do unilaterally is work to ensure that the White House, basically comes up with a plan that says we have a set goalpost of not just talking about piecemeal legislation, but a set goal of cutting gun deaths in half by 2030, which we could do by implementing this comprehensive plan. So that the idea is that Biden could go to Congress and say, we have this plan, you can implement this plan and save lives today instead of waiting for the next shooting to happen. Because I'll be completely honest with you, if we're just waiting for the next Sandy Hook or Parkland or Aurora or Las Vegas or San Bernardino or any number of countless other shootings to happen, we're never going to end this issue, because there is never going to be a right time to act on this, because the right time is now.
So Jim, I have had these conversations with the White House too. Look, gun violence prevention is not theoretical. Urban Massachusetts has proven that gun laws save lives without banning most guns. And if every state had the same low firearm fatality rate as Massachusetts, if every state had the same comprehensive gun violence prevention laws without banning most guns, 1,000 lives a year would be saved without banning anything except for military-style assault weapons and large-capacity ammunition magazines. And I have had conversations in the Obama administration and not in the Trump administration, but this current administration, and they say we don't have the votes in the House and the Senate.
Well, because, John, with all due respect, this is a fact-immune debate. I mean, the facts are sort of like climate change. There isn't another side anymore, yet they're deniers. Here, there are no real facts on the other side. So there are deniers. So let's go to a place where something has happened. John, with you for a second. Obviously, the $73 million settlement with Remington recently, a week or so ago. Half of the analysts say that this is just the beginning, using consumer laws to get around this federal shield that protects gun manufacturers. The other half I read say this is a one and done kind of thing. It's a great thing, the bankruptcy deal, et cetera, sets this apart. It's not going to be replicated elsewhere. Who's right?
I think it'll be replicated. And I think if you can get to discovery, that's why Remington settled, because they have thought they have absolute immunity. That they couldn't be sued. So they actually focused on marketing guns to populations that, young boys, men, who...
What did it say, celebrate your manhood or some such thing? I can't
Right.
remember the exact words in the ads.
Because they figured they can't be sued. Now I think they can be sued, and it's not strict.
So how does that change? In anticipation of possibly being sued, if your analysis is right, John, how does that change the behavior of a gun manufacturer?
Because the last thing Remington wanted was 20 parents showing pictures of their 6- and 7-year-olds who were shot with 3 to 11 rounds and had to be identified by their clothing with a military-style weapon. And that anybody can buy those in 32 states without an ID or a background check is a reason why there's a mass shooting of 4 or more people every day in America. And Congress has chosen to allow it. We need to hold Congress accountable. And the only way we're going to hold Congress accountable ultimately is if the gun industry starts to change their behavior, because they are going to be sued.
Can we go back from Congress to state legislatures, where you've been pretty successful, and he's been really successful in this legislature, and obviously you're a Massachusetts resident, at least for a couple of years while you're in school. I love this bill that's pending. I don't even know how you feel about this, that says if you can't sell a weapon in the state, then you can't manufacture that weapon in the state. I know that doesn't cross borders to help you in the next state or the next state, like going north to New Hampshire. That is such an obviously good idea to me. Is it to you, I assume?
Yeah, it's a small step, but here's the thing about all these things. We can continue to talk about piecemeal legislation, and it's great to see the work that John has done over these past decades to make these things possible. But the reality is it's going to take generations of people doing this if we're just focused at the state level and we don't address the fact that the filibuster is effectively killing our children, because we are not able to enact common sense gun laws even when we do elect a majority who says they support them.
So, but what piece of you believes that this Congress or the next Congress or the next Congress is going to all of a sudden confront this filibuster issue when they won't do it on, well, we just saw it recently on things like voting rights, which may end Democratic control of Congress. So if all they care about is their own jobs, they're not even willing to protect them in this instance. Are you optimistic that they'll change their stripes or no?
Optimism isn't a choice when kids are dying. We have to continue working no matter what we think the future holds in the first place, because I think the future of this issue probably looks a lot more to some of the tactics that were used to get gay marriage legalized, going at the state level and going state by state by state and working to change the courts and jurisprudence and things like that, using states as the kind of laboratories to see what can we get done that's constitutional, and then go to Congress after we've proven to them that this is possible to do at the state level, essentially.
You buy that?
Yeah, yes, I do. And Jim, I was the lead advocate for that gun bill.
That's why I didn't ask you. I figured I'd start with him and then get to you.
But think about this. So in Massachusetts, we ban military-style assault weapons, including copycat weapons that don't have the same name but do the same function, and large-capacity ammunition magazines. So from a moral standpoint, how, if our legislators are willing to ban these weapons to make us safer in Massachusetts, why is it okay to distribute them? It was a made in Massachusetts weapon used at Parkland, made in Massachusetts assault weapon at Aurora and in Las Vegas. And in Las Vegas, even I, a cynic, thought 551 people shot, 850 sent to the hospital in minutes with, wounds from assault weapons, and Congress did nothing. At some point, enough people will be killed in one public place that might locate Republican legislators' spines.
But, after the three of us obviously agreeing that this is a wonderful piece of legislation, albeit limited, it's even more limited because then a gun company, as we know, moves out of state if it turns out that's in its face. So as you say, ultimately, it's got, do you ever get discouraged? I mean, I have to say, I hadn't met you till tonight, but even in this 10 minutes here, you were relentless. And I know what you're going to say because there are going to be more deaths. You have to be. You go home at night and you close the door and you got to deal with all this crap. Mm-hmm. Do you have doubt or?
Yeah, I think there is doubt. I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't. But I think that the reality is the thing that keeps me hopeful is that we're going to outlive these people. Bottom line.
Yep.
We have the most valuable asset that anybody in politics can have on our side that the majority in Congress do not, which is time.
Pretty sad state of affairs, though. You have to outlive the opposition to prevail, isn't it?
It is. And frankly, what scares me right now is the fact that we are in a crisis of our democracy, or what little of it that we have left. And the fact that in 2018, when I was 17 years old, in the wake of the shooting and the immediate aftermath, I said, "You're the adults, we're the kids, you need to do something." Those same adults then said to those kids, well, you're about to be 18, go out and vote. And we did at one of the highest rates in American history, and then the highest ever in American history in 2020, only to see the filibuster kill any possibility of getting these major consequential pieces of legislation passed. And what I fear is if we continue to tell our young people and future generations, democracy works, it works, just keep believing in it, just keep voting, and then it doesn't, they're going to look for something other than democracy.
John Rosenthal, I've known you for a long time. I've known him for 10 minutes. I'm told you two, since he moved to town, have developed a bit of a relationship. Is that so?
Oh,
he's nodding.
Absolutely.
Could you do? I'm curious because I'm interested.
So, David and I met, and I was thinking, he needs to know that gun violence prevention is not theoretical, that it's been proven in an urban state. And then when he came to Massachusetts, we started hanging out, and I've been teaching him how to sail, and he's as passionate a sailor as an activist like me. And there's all this institutional history that I just want to pass on. I mean, March for Our Lives and the student movement is our greatest hope. I mean, student movements have worked in the past, not to mention ending a war. And I do believe that the March for Our Lives movement
it's going to end this war too.
Is going to end this war, and we'll do it with fact-based optimism. And Massachusetts is that model if we just replicate it. So eventually we will. But every day that we don't, 100 more people die, and 150 more people are shot, and there's a mass shooting of 4 more people. And shame on Congress, but we will change Congress.
And the March for Our Lives movement is once again gearing up to try to end this war, with hundreds of events planned across the country. Next Saturday, that's June 11th, and tomorrow we'll be joined by 2 of the organizers, a Brooklyn High graduate and another Parkland shooting survivor, on why they're hoping this time will be different. We all hope so too. That and more tomorrow at 7. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe.